Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest edition of this month's Cult Classic series. As you know, for 12 months of the year, every month we look at a cult classic TV series throughout the decades, whether it's 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties that have left their mark on the TV industry, and they're still being played worldwide today across all different nations, dubbed in so many different languages throughout the globe. And one of the shows that we're going to preview this month is a detective show. One of the original TV detective shows was back in the 1970s. Obviously, it's been remade into movies as we know it. But it aired from 1975 to 1979 over 4 seasons, 92 episodes in total. It was a detective show featuring Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul as the two main leading characters. It was called Starsky and Hutch. Also, Bernie Hamilton and Antonio Fargas played the other two sort of primary characters. But our guest this evening is one of the main stunt coordinators for Starsky and Hutch. He was there from episode 1 and he was there in the final episode as well. He was there for all the episodes throughout the 4 seasons, 1975 to 1979. He was the stunt double of Starsky for Paul Michael Glaser. He was the one and only Charles Picerni. He played in 6 episodes as well throughout the seasons. In season 2, episode 4, Murder at Sea, he played the role of Nicky Cairo. In season 3, episode 7, The Heroes, which aired in October 1977, he played the role of Larry. And in season 4, episode 20, Target Without a Badge, he played the role of Alex. And Charles, I suppose we're going back 50 years now throughout talking about Starsky and Hutch and back in the 1970s. And I know you've appeared in so many shows throughout the 70s and the 80s. You were on the A-Team as well. So another hit, phenomenal show, shows that have lived on their test of time. When you got involved in Starsky and Hutch after season 1, did you know after season 1 that you were on to a hit here in terms of something that is going to be replayed maybe 10, 20 years' time? And was it such an exciting project for you at the time to be a stunt coordinator, a lead stunt man in such a high-profile show in terms of Hollywood and Los Angeles and cable TV in the 70s, which was Starsky and Hutch?
Okay, right now, James, I got a thing in front of the screen. I don't know what that is. It's the meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
Yeah, so just press allow.
I can't see you right now.
Also, if you just press allow on that, if you press allow on that option there, Charles.
Press what? Because I'm not into this. So what do I press?
Just press OK. Just press OK. Allow that.
On the computer?
Yeah, on the phone.
Look, I'm looking for OK. I don't see it. My wife is not here right now.
So
I hit got it. I hit got it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
So can you see me now?
There it is. Now I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
Starsky and Hutch. Let me tell you a little bit about it. You got all the information correct. Starsky and Hutch was a big turning point in my career. I got into business in 1961, and I was working continuously, moving up, and then Starsky and Hutch came along, and I worked on the pilot. I did a stunt part on the pilot, if you remember it, the big Lincoln driving and the big chase scene. But I also done the fall. That's how I met him, on the pilot. I did a staircase fall for him, and that was the end of that. Then I had a nightclub. I had 2 nightclubs in Beverly Hills at the time that I owned. And Paul used to come in every week and say, man, if this series goes, I want you to coordinate it, be my stunt double. And finally it went. And I did. The turning point was not knowing what it was going to be, like you said before. You never know these things until you work on them, and then all of a sudden they become a big hit. But the turning point was, it was a big hit, number one. I directed 3 episodes, like you said. It was huge for me, not knowing it. Later on, I found out it helped me a lot by getting different shows like Die Hard and Magnum PI, and that helped me move my career up. So it was pretty great, and the show was a success for one reason and one reason only. Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul were 2 good actors, and they worked very hard on making every scene work. From the beginning, they would work on every scene, and it's hard to do in television because you're working constantly. And what happens with that is after a year or so of doing that, I don't care how good you are, and it was good, there's friction. So there's a little friction between, but they solved that. But they made the show work. They had the chemistry of the 2 actors that made every scene work. And The producer, Joe Narr, knew what direction I was heading in because at that point, I wanted to start directing. I wanted to start doing second unit. So everything worked out well for me. On that show, I started coordinating, the first big show. I started doing second unit directing, directed 3 episodes, did a lot of parts, like we said, on it. And it just moved my career up.
Okay. And I suppose, Charles, you mentioned there was a tiny bit of friction at stages in terms of across the 4 seasons. And was that more in keen of maybe Dave, Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul maybe looking at season 4 in terms of the direction the sort of show was going in terms of that sort of final season, in terms of the storylines? Did they want sort of more influence in terms of the creativity and the creative roles?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, the creativity of it, the making the show work. They worked very hard on that, and it takes a toll on it. After a while, it takes it's pretty tough to do every single week, every single show. So, but they managed to get it through, and it probably could have gone probably 5 more seasons, but it's too difficult. It was too difficult to do it the way they did. Most series go by, and the actors just let it go, and they kind of go with the flow. These 2 guys wanted it to be really perfect, and that's one of the reasons why it was a hit show. It was one of the top shows of that time, and I benefit by it because I was very enthusiastic then. I was always want to do something and make my career better. And the producer Joe Narr knew that, and every time he would write a stunt sequence, after a while he put, okay, the stunt sequence will be choreographed by the stunt coordinator. So I would write all the action in it. And then at one point, David had wanted to direct, and he got a 3-day show to do. It was a flashback show for him to direct. And he said, no, I don't want that. I want a full show. So he said, why don't we give it to Charlie Picerni? So they gave me that 3-day flashback. And what it was most of the stunts that I did, Paul and David get into a car crash in the beginning, and Paul gets amnesia, and they're in a hospital bed for the whole show. So it was very difficult to shoot that, in hospital with different angles and stuff like that. But what they were doing was David was trying to get Paul back his memory and flashing back to the things that I had already did the action on. So it worked out well. And then after that, I got 2 more shows to do, and they were full episodes, 7-day shows. And I was very happy with that. So Joe Narr, they treated me good. Aaron Spelling was one of the best producers in Hollywood. Him and Leonard Goldberg were fantastic. I did later on in my career, I did another series for Leonard Goldberg called Gavilan with Bob Urich. But my career kind of took off from there, because then I did Magnum PI, and then Duke Vincent was a great step in my career. He was the executive producer on Starsky, and he got me on T.J. Hooker, and I did about 50 or 60, first unit TV shows directing because of Duke. And he's still around. He lives up in Montecito somewhere. But I met some really great people. But Aaron and Leonard were great producers. They knew what they were doing, and it was great.
You mentioned there a sort of 7-day sort of shoot there in terms of an episode, and I'm just sort of wondering, because there's so much crammed into Starsky and Hutch in terms of one episode, in terms of the story, the beginning, the middle, and sort of ends. Were there many days that it might probably an episode rolled into maybe 10 or 11 or 12 days to shoot an episode, or was it always confined to that sort of week in terms of that 7-day wrap?
What was the schedule, you mean?
Yeah, in terms of
the schedule was like a 7-8 day prep and a 7-day shoot. So you had 7 days to prep it, 8 maybe, and then 7 days to shoot it. And for me, that was enough time, because I started in television, so I knew all the basic stuff to do with the lighting and all that. And I got better as I went along, working with actors, and I went to the Beverly Hills Playhouse, which was all actors, very good actors that went there. And it was a master class. So I learned about working with actors, which is what I wanted to do. And that's very important when you're directing, because most people that get to direct, they kind of follow the DP and do what they kind of hold his hand and move him along. Me, I knew all the technical part of it. I knew how to put it together. Not completely. I did use the DP because he could come up with some good ideas, and I used them. If I wanted to, if I didn't, I didn't. But it was a combination of that, of working with the DP and knowing what I learned. Because I watched it. When I got into business, I didn't just do stunts. I stayed near the camera and I observed. I observed everything around me. And that's how you learn. It's better than going to film school. I got all my education by being by the camera. So I know how to make any movie. And I've directed 2 features. So it's very important to stay near the camera and learn all that. That's what I did. And like on The Untouchables, when I first started way back, I always stayed near the camera. And 13 years later, I was directing the star of the show, Robert Stack. And he was the highest paid actor in town at the time. So I learned quite a bit by staying near the camera. And I'm still doing that.
And I suppose, Charles, just you mentioned the stunts, and in terms of obviously we know that you doubled for Paul, and in terms of the coordinate the stunts, but in terms of the stunts, obviously with the car, did you have a special stunts guy for that, or were you in terms of the stunts in the car, in terms of some of the episodes that we see David and Paul in the car scenes, was that very much your gig as well?
As far as driving the car?
Yeah.
That was me. Every time that car moved, it was me.
Okay,
I drove the car in every episode. Paul drove a little bit. He kind of got wild at times and tried to overdo it, and it didn't work. But no, I drove the car for 88 shows. Okay. So I learned a lot. You learn I was always a good driver, but you learn, again, by being near the camera, learn how to be in the lens, what lens you have on, 25 or 50 or 100, whatever it may be. So as you're driving, to be a motion picture stuntman, you have to see yourself on television. You have to know what the lens is. And I knew that. I knew how to make that car work for the camera, which is very important. Most guys just choreograph a show and they just do it and they hope the cameraman gets it, the operator. I knew it. That's why a lot of operators says, don't worry about it. Charlie knows where the camera is. It's hard to explain, Jim, but it's just the thing that you get. When you're a good motion picture stuntman and you do any kind of a stunt, whether it be a car stunt or a fight scene, you actually I actually see myself on screen. If I'm throwing a punch at you, I see you. I'm watching the combination of the timing and hitting you, but I also see that on the screen. And I don't care if it's 3 or 4 cameras. It's a thing that you get, and it's amazing what happens, you know.
Okay. And in terms of obviously you're a stunt double for Paul Michael Glaser as well, and you appeared in a good few episodes, but offset in between sort of takes and downtime, obviously you're working through a season, you're working through 22, maybe 23 episodes a season, or probably 6-7 months of a year. Did you get very close to Paul in terms of his family, in terms of downtime, in terms of shooting and spending time together to try and get that sort of, dare I say, sync and chemistry? Because there always has to be good chemistry between an actor and a stuntman, has there?
I got you. I know we got close on the set. We never went out socially, but I used to come to my nightclub before I started shooting Starsky, and David and I got very close on the set. We had a lot of fun, but off the set, we never went out with each other or hung out. Now I do a few things with Paul. He does some events, for Starsky, some. Things, and his birthday not too long ago when I went to California to do a little thing on that. So no, socially we didn't do anything, but on the set we were pretty close. I mean, I knew what I did was I knew the chemistry the 2 guys had, and I knew as a coordinator that I made that Paul was more of a funny guy. When he did a fight, I made a little comical for his character. David was more definite. When he did something, it was more of a real thing. Paul was more funny. He looked the other way and then hit a guy, or whatever it may be. I made it fit his character. David, I made made it fit his character. And the guy that I had doubling for David, who's not here anymore, Gary Eppers, he was a great stuntman, and he was perfect for David, and he listened to what I was saying. So I actually directed all the action on it.
Okay. And Charles, in terms of Bernie Hamilton and Antonio Fargas, obviously Antonio Fargas is still very much with us today, but Bernie Hamilton sadly is not with us anymore. How integral were Bernie Hamilton and Antonio Fargas? Obviously, they were the 2 other primary sort of characters. I mean, not as prime as Starsky and Hutch, but there were integral components to the show as well. And Bernie, how valuable was Bernie Hamilton to the success of Starsky and Hutch?
Well, what kind of? I'm not quite getting what kind of a character was he? What kind of a guy?
No, yeah. How valuable was he to the success
Very
of Starsky?
valuable. He was great, and he he knew his part, he knew his character, he did great. And Tony was great too. Tony was a big asset to the trio, you know. It was a comedy relief, and you know, he was great. And Bernie was terrific. You need those characters to make the show. And when Aaron put that show together with the writers that he got, they made that all work. And then the actors took over. Like I said, they worked on every single scene. And I told Paul and David, I said, Paul, if you get one scene out of every show that's good, be happy. If you try and get every show perfect, you're going to go bananas at the end. Because I know I've seen actors do that through my career. And this is what happened. After a year, they started to get a little, you know, crazy with their working so hard. You can't help it. But then they settled down and things worked out fine. And then,
And
you
I
know,
suppose, Charles, in terms of the, obviously at the time, the 1970s, when you signed on, was it very much dependent on ratings after the first season or two seasons, where you get season 3 or season 4, or was it very much, was it a yearly sort of targets where you'd have to hit a certain numbers after a year, or did you know signing on that it was going to be a 2 or 3 year gig straight from the off?
you mean I don't understand. On my deal?
In terms of Starsky and Hutch itself, in terms of its existence, was it always going to be 1 or 2 seasons guaranteed, or after season 1 was it up for review whether there would be a season 2 based on numbers of viewership?
After the first season, it was up for review, but I automatically went on and did it. They were very happy with what I did. They weren't about to change it. Paul wanted me because he knew that I made his character look great, and I worked with David also. No, the relationship there with me and the 2 guys were great, and the producer. And that's the reason why I got more shows to direct, because I proved myself to them. And, you know, and I worked with also many TV directors that were really great and knowledgeable. Not like today. Today you get writers and you get whatever they come from, they want to direct television, whatever they do, and the cameraman helps and they get it done. But in those days, these were guys that were real directors. They came out of different areas, but they knew what they were doing as far as TV. There was one guy, I can't think of his name now. God, he started off as in the mailroom at MGM. Terrific director, and he knew what he was doing. I'll think of it in a moment. Anyway, the one show, he said, "Okay, Charlie, get the action all set up." And I would go out there and I'd get all the stunt guys and I get all the action set up, cars coming around, blah, 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 where the cameras were going to be. And then I sit down next to Don, I'll think of his last name in a minute. But anyway, Don, I was sitting next to him. I said, "Okay, Don, we're ready." He said, "Isn't it great when you get these shows all cut together and you see all that action in the beginning, all that stuff happening, directed by Don Weiss?" So he knew that I was helping him, but his name was there. He was the director. And I always remember that. TV directors like that were really great, you know. And then, you know, through the years, the television changed. In those days, a lot of big actors didn't want to do TV because they thought it was, you know, not as good as features, which they probably were. But then television changed around the when Hill Street Blues came out. That was a whole different concept of how to make TV, and a lot of big actors wanted to work on television then. That changed the whole format of it, you know. But I worked on shows like Batman TV series, and a lot of actors did cameo roles. That was great, you know. It's a variety of things that I did, not only Starsky and Hutch. And then I moved up my career from you know, doing all those TV shows and directing a lot of them. I finally said I wanted to, you know, because you reach different goals in your career. You want to be a stuntman? I reached that. I was one of the best. I want to be a coordinator? I reached that. I wanted a second unit director. Now I want to do features. And I got in there at an interview for everybody in town was on the interview for coordinating it. And for Die Hard 1. And I got that show. And that was a turning point in my career then. Big movies. Instead of TV, it was anamorphic and it was big. So I proved myself there. I did a lot of second unit on that, and I just kept moving up. It's a fun business then. Now it's not too much fun with this COVID crap and mandating and all that. I'm not into that, so I don't care about it right now. If it's not a mandate, if it's not any vaccine, I'm in. I never had a vaccine in my life.
Charles, I suppose finally for me to you, I suppose in 2 sentences, can you summarize your experience of your time working on Starsky and Hutch and what it means to you even still to this day?
What Starsky meant to me, and that now,
Yeah.
it meant an awful lot because people still think about it. But there's many shows that I've done, but Starsky and Hutch was, like I said, a big turning point in my career. And I always look back on it, and it meant a lot to me because that was a stepping stone for me to move up. I met a lot of great people, so it was an interesting time in my career, and I'm still going, still moving along.
Yeah, on that note, Charles Picerni, an absolute pleasure to talking to you today, to relive your memories of your time on Starsky and Hutch. Appeared from the pilot episode 1 right there to the very end, all 4 seasons, all 92 episodes. You appeared as a character in 6 episodes. Huh?
88.
88 episodes. You appeared in as a character yourself in 6 episodes of Starsky and Hutch throughout the seasons. Charles, an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and it's great to hear you're still doing an awful lot of work in the TV entertainment and the movie industry, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Charles Picerni, take care.
Thank you so much, Jim, and good luck with the show.
Cheers. Thank you, Charles. Bye.